can't believe I'm having to make this video. As a Liverpool fan, it's very difficult for me to say anything positive about Manchester United or Manchester City, considering they are two of our now biggest rivals. Man United historically, and Man City since they had a bit of an influx in cash, which we will not discuss here. Both could present a very big title challenge to Liverpool this year, and that will obviously relate in fantasy football. However, there is a slight conundrum, because somehow both teams managed to get themselves into the latter stages of the Europa League and Champions League respectively. Subsequently, both teams are missing the first game week of the FPL season, which is presenting a very difficult question for most FPL managers. Do I include them in my initial squad and then just take the hit in the first week? Or do I make the most of the money available and go for alternative options and then transfer them out, potentially missing out on a couple of game weeks? There is no right or wrong answer for this, but I'm about to walk you through what I think is the best way to go about it, or at least how I intend to deal with it. This is going to be really hard because I have to say lots of positive things about Manchester United and Manchester City players. Oh, right, okay. So the plan in this is that I'm going to run through 3 players on either team that I think are probably worth your time and investment. And I'm also going to talk to you about how I intend to use my Manchester City and Manchester United players in the save. Not in the save, in the season, sorry. I feel like it's Football Manager. It's not, but if you want to watch Football Manager, feel free to go and check out the rest of the videos on my channel, or go and follow me down at twitch.tv/MikeRo14, where I stream Football Manager and a couple of other games pretty much most of the week. And we will be kicking off with the Manchester United defender, as in spite of all the kind of stereotypes that United's defence is not the best, and let's face it, it is not, it is still not bad by any stretch of the imagination, especially towards the end of last year, where they showed a lot more defensive resolve and had almost like a settled back four in Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof and Shaw, or Brandon Williams. Williams is a decent option, as is Luke Shaw, but because we don't really know which one is going to start in that left back role, I think that your best option is to go for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The right back is obviously known for being one of the best one-on-one defenders in the world, but his attacking returns are not potentially the best. Last year, for example, he only got 4 assists in a Manchester United team that towards the end of the season started to score quite freely. If United can maintain that decent to solid defensive record that they had towards the end of last season, Wan-Bissaka is a very good shout. Mind you, at £5.5 million, he is relatively expensive, although not when you put it in comparison to the rest of the United and City lineups. Moving further up the pitch, naturally, Bruno Fernandes is one of the must-haves of the game, mainly because of the insane impact they had on United towards the end of last season. 8 goals and 8 assists in only around about 18 appearances, because he joined halfway through the season, is a monumental testament to how well this player has actually done. Granted, at least 7 of those goals were probably penalties. But United continue to win penalties with a very tricky, pacey front 3 that they have, and Fernandes is a consummate finisher from the 12-yard spot, and therefore it is hard to see how you can't have him in your team, although £10.5 million makes him a little bit of a difficult prospect to fit into your side. Especially with the arrival of Donny van de Beek, there is no doubt in my mind that Fernandes will still be the number 1 midfielder, but there is a slight more possibility for rotation between him and van de Beek, although we won't know how him, Pogba and Van de Beek are going to fit together in a midfield triangle. My theory is that that will not happen, and that there will be rotation between Van de Beek, Pogba and Fernandes, unless one of these is going to leave. Now, I am a man that has stood by Anthony Martial pretty much since he ever arrived in the Premier League. He is one of my favourite players, despite the fact that he plays for one of my most disliked teams. But at £9 million this year up front, it is hard to see that he has the same value as this man. Mason Greenwood, only £7.5 million, the same price that Anthony Martial was last year when he was classified as a midfielder, and this kid has already scored 10 goals and got 1 assist in only 1,300 minutes, or just over 1,300 minutes, of playing football. In a debut season that literally took everyone's breath away, it's hard to know if he is going to have a little bit of a drop off in the second season, or if he's only going to go from strength to strength. In this United team, it looks like he's still guaranteed likely to be playing out on that right hand side of the front three, and I would be amazed if he didn't improve on his haul of 10 goals last year. With a 13.6% of ownership over the managers, he's obviously a bit more of a kind of popular option, but at the same time there is a reason for that, and that price tag, he looks too good value to leave by when you consider that Marcus Rashford is £9.5 million, and like I said, Anthony Martial as a forward is £9 million. Naturally, the man that most people are going to want in their team is going to be Kevin De Bruyne. Obviously, top scorer in fantasy football last year with 251 points, 13 goals and 23 assists. The man is genuinely and probably the best player in the Premier League, and he has been for the last couple of years. There is no getting around that. A phenomenal talent, the Belgian creator and orchestrator is at the heart of everything that City do, and he is insanely consistent and usually will give you some sort of involvement every single week. His consistency is fantastic, but if you partner that against the explosivity of a certain Raheem Sterling, it does make you wonder which one you should go for. Both are £11.5 million, both have potential to obviously get returns relatively consistently, but Sterling is likely to score in bunches. He is very prone to getting 2-3 goals in very quick succession. He's less than an assister and seems to be on the end of absolutely everything. The fact that he can also occasionally play a false nine and seems to be very much one of the only midfielders or forwards that Pep Guardiola does not drop does seem to suggest that Raheem Sterling is probably a safer bet than any of the other City midfielders other than De Bruyne. These two are the most fundamental part of the way that City play. And if I was to be a betting man, I would probably have Kevin De Bruyne just to be safe because of the consistency, and you may be able to find the explosivity somewhere else. But do be prepared to take a few hits if you don't get Sterling into your team, because there will be weeks where he will absolutely destroy teams. Just not Leon. Oh, I had to get that in there. But in the midst of all of this is a certain Phil Foden. £6.5 million for a player. They got 5 goals and 2 assists last year. You think, oh, that's a little bit expensive. When you consider that he barely played any minutes, 888 minutes, and was absolutely phenomenal after the end of lockdown, and the fact that David Silva has now moved on from Manchester City, they are crying out for a man to come over and take the little Spaniards role by the scruff of their hands. Phil Foden, for me, is that man. The only question is he going to play enough minutes with the fact that you've got Bernardo Silva that can play in midfield, you've got Gundogan, you've got Torres, all of these players, I'm only talking about the ones that are creative. He can also play out on the left-hand side or on the right, but he is mainly going to be played in that midfield position, I imagine, potentially with De Bruyne. Home games, I think he'll play. Away, I am less sure. The question you need to ask is it worth taking that gamble that he may not play, and he may only ever play 2 in 3, 1 in 2? It's a hard one to ask, but the spoils may just be worth it. And so we look up front, and again, it's another conundrum that you always get with Pep Guardiola. Do you go with Gabriel Jesus or Sergio Aguero? Last year was the first year that Gabriel Jesus actually outscored his Argentinian counterpart, and I think there may well be a passing of the torch this year. Jesus got a good 14 goals and 8 assists last year, in not as many minutes, obviously, as you would like for a City forward, but with only 2.3% ownership, he is a massive differential. A massive differential. It's just a case of whether Aguero gets picked ahead of him. Sergio does not have that much time left in his career, but we all know that he is a tried and trusted, proven goal scorer in FPL. But will injuries catch up with him and will age? And is Gabriel Jesus ready to step into the big boots left by the City's number 10? I'm not really 100% sure. It may well be worth a gamble. He is definitely one that I am keeping an eye on personally. And there you are, 6 players from Manchester United and Manchester City combined that I think could well be well worth a punt in fantasy football this year, and also are the best in terms of value. How am I going to work them in to my fantasy football team? That is the question. And I'm glad you asked, because I need to plan this out as well. So this is my lineup, and it hasn't changed since the last time that we met where I did my first draft, and that's because I'm still working out the kinks of it. But the plan, as I see it, is to have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for at least the first 2 game weeks, where he's playing away at Craven Cottage against Fulham and then hosting West Ham. I expect him to get goals in that game, but then a hard run of Liverpool, Sheffield United, Man City and then Leicester make me think that I might, and then obviously United as well, sorry, away from home, makes me think that I might drop him out of the side, and that is the time that I bring in either Kevin De Bruyne or Raheem Sterling. These players are the ones that I think I just must have. City's fixtures are not particularly great at the start, but because it's Man City, it doesn't really matter. They can take anyone apart on the day, no matter who it is. And with that in mind, I think that they're going to be a bit more consistent than United are this year. But I don't want to miss out on the United gravy boat. Because when you look at Man United's fixtures, they are sensational all the way up until game week 12, where they actually host Manchester City. So the way I look at it is, if I bring in De Bruyne for Aubameyang, the plan would then be to take Heung-min Son out of my lineup and bring in Mason Greenwood. If I bring in Mason Greenwood, that leaves me £2 million available, and then I would swap Alexander Lacazette for Harry Kane, so I still get my Tottenham coverage. Or, depending on how Spurs had started the season, I would then swap Kane for Anthony Martial and save myself another £1.5 million. There's also an argument for me maybe taking Salah out for Bruno Fernandes, which might be another option. I'm not 100% sure. It all depends on the form. The beauty is having these two premium players in Salah and Aubameyang at the start of the season will allow you to manoeuvre as much as you need to get in the players that you want in your lineup from United and City. I feel that if you start with United and City players, you are already hindering yourself and playing catch up, because it means that there's no physical way, really, in my mind, you can have a balanced, decent team and have a De Bruyne and a Martial on the bench. There is no way of doing that, because then you are missing out on Aubameyang, you're missing out on Salah, you're missing out on Trent Alexander-Arnold. You're missing out on quality, you're missing out on Harry Kane, you're missing out on quality everywhere else. So for me, I'm going to be playing the kind of transfer-weighted game. I will not make a transfer in game week 1 unless there's a really bad injury to one of my key players, and then I will start chopping and changing in game week 2 when I know that I can afford to remove Aubameyang, because the idea of him playing West Ham at home, I don't want to remove him from that. It's too important a fixture and I need to get off to a good start, as I'm sure we all do. But that is just my opinion. Obviously, the world goes around on difference of opinions, so let me know what you intend to do on your fantasy football. If you think my idea is good, do you think I'm talking a load of tosh? If so, come and prove it in my Fantasy Football Premier League, the MikeRo Invitational. I love the fact I said Premier League. It makes it sound very strange when I'm doing it. It's very jarring. Come and join me in my Fantasy Football League. The code is down below. And while you're there, drop a like on the video, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Patreon, or support me on Patreon if you feel like it. And yeah, just have a look around the channel and enjoy all the content that's coming your way. It's not just FPL, it's games, it's football discussion. And I hope that if you're new to the channel, you're really enjoying yourself. Welcome to the family, and thank you so much for your support. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and until you see for another episode of FPL, where we'll be tackling some more premium player issues. Stay cool.